All set?
All set.
Take over, Rowdy.
Head him up and move him out.
Can you hear the whip crack? Rawhide was the pulse of America in 1959, turning Rowdy Yates into a household name. But behind the scenes, the cast faced battles far tougher than any outlaw. Today, we pay tribute to the survivors and remember those we have lost to the sands of time. Grab your tissues. These side-by-side comparisons reveal the bittersweet reality of Hollywood's golden age. The ending will shock you. Clint Eastwood as Rowdy Yates. Born on May 31, 1930, in San Francisco, California, the future screen legend found his breakout role on the cattle drive saga Rawhide. At the age of 28, Eastwood's portrayal of the impetuous and youthful ramrod Rowdy Yates propelled him to stardom, serving as the handsome, relatable counterpoint to the show's gritty trail boss. For 8 seasons, his simmering intensity and rugged charisma helped make the Western series a major ratings success, laying the cultural groundwork for the tough, laconic anti-heroes he would later define in cinema history. Despite the fame the role provided, Clint Eastwood possessed a burning ambition and creative drive that clashed significantly with the limitations of network television. He grew increasingly frustrated with the character of Rowdy Yates, famously disparaging the role as the idiot of the plains, and feeling stifled by playing a subordinate youngster while he was a grown man in his 30s. This professional dissatisfaction was compounded by a restrictive contract that prevented him from taking feature film roles in the United States, forcing him to look overseas to Italy for work during his hiatus, a gamble that ultimately saved him from being typecast as a permanent TV cowboy. Clint Eastwood transcended his television roots to become one of the most prolific and respected actors and directors in Hollywood history, earning multiple Academy Awards for masterpieces like Unforgiven and $1 Million Baby. His career longevity is unparalleled, continuing to direct major motion pictures well into his nonagenarian years, including the release of his courtroom thriller Juror No. 2 in his mid-90s. As of 2026, at the age of 95, he remains a revered icon of the industry, living primarily in Carmel-by-the-Sea, California, where he stands as a living testament to an extraordinary evolution from a cattle drive ramrod to a premier American auteur. Leonard Nimoy as Anko. Born on March 26, 1931, in Boston, Massachusetts, the actor spent his early career taking on a wide variety of character roles in television. At the age of 29, Nimoy portrayed Anko in Rawhide, appearing in the episode Incident at the Buffalo Smoke during the show's run, which began in 1959. His performance as the Comanche character was a testament to his ability to bring intensity and dignity to the screen, contributing to the success of a Western series that served as a cultural staple of the era and a training ground for future superstars. The contrast between the actor and the character was immense. Nimoy was a soft-spoken Jewish intellectual and photographer from Boston's West End, completely removed from the rugged, plains-dwelling warrior persona of Anko. This role highlighted the early professional struggles Nimoy faced, where his distinctive features often led to him being typecast in ethnic roles rather than leading parts. Even after finding massive success later in his career, he battled against being pigeonholed, struggling for years to differentiate his own identity from his on-screen personas, and facing the difficulty of finding diverse work outside of the science fiction genre that eventually defined him. Leonard Nimoy went on to have a prolific career, not just as an actor, but as a successful director of films like 3 Men and a Baby and a celebrated photographer. He embraced his legacy in his later years, appearing in the rebooted Star Trek films and the series Fringe. Nimoy passed away at his home in Los Angeles on February 27, 2015, at the age of 83, from complications arising from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. His death sparked a global outpouring of grief, with fans, co-stars, and even world leaders honoring his contribution to the arts, and his final message of live long and prosper. Charles Bronson as Dell Lingman. Born on November 3, 1921, in Ehrenfeld, Pennsylvania, the coal miner's son, originally named Charles Bukinski, carved out a legendary career playing tough, stoic figures. At the age of 38, Bronson took on the role of Dell Lingman in the Rawhide episode titled Incident of the Tumbleweed. While a guest appearance rather than a recurring lead, his portrayal of the guarded and rugged convict highlighted the simmering intensity and formidable screen presence that would eventually make him the world's #1 box office attraction. This role was a crucial stepping stone in a career defined by gritty realism, helping to establish the strong silent archetype that became a cultural touchstone in action cinema. Despite his on-screen reputation as a vigilante and a man of violence, the real Charles Bronson was a gentle, soft-spoken, and notoriously introverted man who preferred painting and spending time with his family to the glitz of Hollywood. This contrast defined his existence. He was a man of few words who found the industry's social demands exhausting. His professional journey was fraught with early struggles, including extreme poverty in his youth and the necessity of changing his surname from Bukinski to Bronson to avoid the anti-Eastern European sentiment of the McCarthy era. For years, he fought against being typecast solely as an ethnic heavy or villain struggling to find leading man status in America long after he had already achieved superstardom in Europe. Charles Bronson continued to dominate the action genre well into his later years, most notably launching the Death Wish franchise in his 50s, which redefined his career. However, his final years were marked by a decline in health following his retirement from acting in the late 1990s. He suffered from Alzheimer's disease, a condition that slowly eroded the iron-willed persona the public knew. Charles Bronson passed away at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles on August 30, 2003, at the age of 81, due to respiratory failure and metastatic lung cancer complicating his pneumonia. He was laid to rest in Brownsville, Vermont, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most iconic tough guys in cinematic history. Barbara Stanwyck as Norah Holloway. Born on July 16, 1907 in Brooklyn, New York, the legendary actress brought her commanding screen presence to the Western series Rawhide. At the age of 52, Stanwyck's portrayal of the ruthless and imperious cattle queen Norah Holloway was a powerhouse performance that bridged the gap between the golden age of Hollywood and the rising medium of television. Her turn as the iron-willed matriarch not only elevated the episode's gravity, but also served as a precursor to her defining television work in the Western genre, proving that her star power remained undimmed by time or medium changes. While Norah Holloway was a manipulative tyrant, willing to destroy others to maintain control, Barbara Stanwyck was known on set as Missy, a beloved professional renowned for her kindness to crew members and absolute lack of pretension. This warmth stood in stark contrast to the hardened characters she often played. However, this period in her career was born out of professional necessity and struggle. As leading film roles for women over 50 began to vanish, she was forced to pivot to television, a movie largely considered a demotion for a cinema icon at the time. She faced the industry-wide ageism head-on, working tirelessly to reinvent herself, despite the personal loneliness she endured following her divorce from Robert Taylor and the estrangement from her adopted son. Barbara Stanwyck successfully conquered the small screen, eventually landing the iconic role of Victoria Barclay in The Big Valley, which ran from 1965 to 1969 and solidified her status as a television matriarch. She continued to deliver acclaimed performances well into her 70s, earning an Emmy for her role in The Thornbirds in 1983. Her health eventually declined due to years of heavy smoking. Barbara Stanwyck passed away at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California, on January 20, 1990, at the age of 82 from congestive heart failure and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. In accordance with her specific wishes, no funeral service was held, and her ashes were scattered from a helicopter over Lone Pine, California, a rugged landscape where she had filmed many of her westerns. Elizabeth Montgomery as Rose. Born on April 15, 1933 in Los Angeles, California, the daughter of film star Robert Montgomery established her own path in Hollywood with early dramatic appearances. At the age of 26, Montgomery took on the role of Rose. Her performance in the gritty Western drama showcased a depth and seriousness that predated her comedic fame, allowing her to embody the resilience required of women on the frontier. This guest-starring role was a pivotal moment in her early career, demonstrating her dramatic range to a national audience during the peak of the television Western era. While she convincingly portrayed the rugged and often weary life of a character like Rose Elizabeth, Montgomery's real-life persona was that of polished Hollywood royalty with a rebellious modern streak. The contrast between the distress of her dramatic Western roles and her privileged, sophisticated upbringing was sharp. However, her greatest professional struggle arose not from these early dramas, but from the immense success that followed them. After achieving global superstardom as Samantha Stevens, she fought for years against severe typecasting. She struggled to convince producers and audiences that she could handle serious dark material again, working tirelessly to shed the bubbly witch image that threatened to eclipse her versatility as an actress. Elizabeth Montgomery successfully reinvented herself as the queen of TV movies in the 1970s and 80s, taking on controversial and heavy roles in films like A Case of Rape and The Legend of Lizzie Borden. She remained politically active and continued working until her health suddenly declined. She passed away at her home in Beverly Hills on May 18, 1995, at the age of 62, just 8 weeks after being diagnosed with advanced colorectal cancer. Her untimely death shocked the industry and her fans, leading to an outpouring of tributes for a woman who had successfully navigated the difficult transition from sitcom icon to respected dramatic actress. Paul Brinegar as Wishbone. Born on December 19, 1917, the Tucumcari, New Mexico native brought a distinct flavor to the Western genre long before stepping behind the chuck wagon. At the age of 41, Brinegar began his tenure as G.W. Wishbone, the cantankerous but lovable cook on the hit series Rawhide. His portrayal of the grumpy, bearded cookie became a cultural archetype for Westerns, providing essential comic relief and gruff wisdom amidst the cattle drive's hardships. For nearly the entire run of the series, his character served as the glue of the drovers' camp, cementing his status as one of television's most memorable character actors. The on-screen image of a weather-beaten elderly curmudgeon stood in sharp contrast to Brinegar's actual age and reality. Throughout the series, he was significantly younger than the character he portrayed, mastering the art of playing men decades his senior, a skill that paradoxically became a professional hurdle. This proficiency led to severe typecasting. Producers and audiences alike struggled to see him as anything other than the scruffy old-timer sidekick. Following the abrupt mid-season cancellation of Rawhide in 1965, a result of declining ratings and network shifts, Brinegar faced the difficult challenge of breaking free from the specific mold that had made him famous, often finding himself relegated to very similar roles in a changing television landscape. Paul Brinegar continued to work steadily in the industry, embracing his niche by starring as Jelly Hoskins in the Western series Lancer from 1968 to 1970, and making appearances in shows like Matt Houston and the 1994 film version of Maverick. Despite the industry's tendency to typecast him, he maintained a respectable career as a reliable character actor until the end of his life. Paul Brinegar passed away in Los Angeles, California on March 27, 1995, at the age of 77 from emphysema. His legacy endures through syndication, where his portrayal of Wishbone remains the gold standard for the quintessential Western cook. Eric Fleming as Gil Favor. Born on July 4, 1925 in Santa Paula, California, the imposing actor assumed the role of the trail boss Gil Favor when Rawhide premiered. At the age of 33, Fleming's portrayal of the stern, authoritative, and morally complex leader became the anchor of the series, providing the gravitas needed to balance the younger energy of co-star Clint Eastwood. His performance defined the archetype of the responsible cowboy leader, making the show a massive ratings success and establishing Gil Favor as one of the most respected figures in television Western history. Despite playing the ultimate father figure and steady leader on screen, Eric Fleming's real life was shaped by a traumatic and turbulent past, including a harsh childhood and a severe facial injury sustained during World War II that required extensive reconstruction. This personal intensity fueled his acting, but reportedly contributed to friction on the set. His time on Rawhide was marred by professional struggles, including disputes over pay and workload, as the series progressed. These tensions eventually led to a conflict with producers, resulting in his abrupt and controversial dismissal from the show prior to its final season, leaving him to rebuild his career after 7 years in the saddle. Eric Fleming moved on to feature films, looking to expand his repertoire beyond the Western genre. He accepted a role in the MGM adventure pilot High Jungle, which required location shooting in South America. Tragically, while filming a scene on the Hualaga River in Tingo Maria, Peru, his canoe overturned in the rapids. Eric Fleming drowned on September 28, 1966, at the age of 41, after reportedly helping his co-star Nico Minardos reach safety. His sudden death occurred just 2 days before he was scheduled to marry his fiancée, Lynn Garber, marking a devastating end to a life that had overcome significant odds to achieve stardom. James Murdoch as Mushy. Born on June 22, 1931, in Normal, Illin James Murdoch Coyce, the actor found his defining role as Harkness Mushy Mushgrove in the hit Western series Rawhide. At the age of 27, Murdoch brought a lovable innocence to the role of the bumbling, good-hearted assistant to the cantankerous camp cook Wishbone. While co-stars like Clint Eastwood provided the grit and romance, Murdoch provided the essential comic relief that balanced the show's dramatic tension. His portrayal of the dim-witted but loyal drover endeared him to audiences for 7 seasons, making him a memorable fixture in the golden age of television westerns. Despite playing a character defined by his lack of intelligence and clumsiness, James Murdoch was a serious actor who often found himself at odds with the public's perception of him. The contrast between the capable man and the simple-minded character he played was stark, yet he performed the role so convincingly that he faced severe typecasting once the series concluded. Like many character actors of the era, he struggled to shed the persona of the goofy sidekick, finding that casting directors and producers had difficulty seeing him as anything other than the chuckwagon assistant. This professional pigeonholing made it incredibly difficult for him to transition into serious drama or leading roles after the show's cancellation in 1965. James Murdoch appeared in sporadic roles following the end of the series, securing guest spots on shows like Gunsmoke and Adam 12, and appearing in the film The Godfather, 1972, though he never regained the level of fame he achieved on the cattle drive. Tragically, his life was cut short relatively early. James Murdoch passed away in Calabasas, California, on December 24, 1981, at the age of 50 from lung cancer. His death on Christmas Eve marked a premature end to his journey, leaving him immortalized in pop culture as the eternal youth of the Rawhide camp. Robert Cabal as Jesus. Born on April 7, 1917 in Honolulu, Hawaii, the actor started his career with small film roles before landing the part that would define his professional life. At the age of 41, Cabal joined the cast of Rawhide as Jesus the cattle drive's gentle and loyal wrangler. As one of the few recurring Latino characters on television during the late 1950s, who was portrayed as a reliable team member rather than a villain or caricature, his role was culturally significant. For 7 seasons, his warm presence provided a comforting constant against the harsh backdrop of the trail, making him a beloved figure to the show's dedicated audience. Behind the scenes, Robert Cabal's life was far more guarded than that of the friendly wrangler he portrayed. Navigating Hollywood as an actor of mixed Filipino-Spanish and Chinese heritage presented significant hurdles, subjecting him to the era's prevalent typecasting and limiting his opportunities outside of exotic support roles. His tenure on Rawhide ended on a sour note. Feeling underutilized and marginalized as the seasons wore on, he was cut from the series before its final season, leaving him without work and effectively signaling the end of his acting career. Robert Cabal ultimately withdrew from the entertainment industry almost entirely after his time on the range ended, living the rest of his decades in quiet obscurity in Los Angeles. He did not pursue the convention circuit or revival fame that many of his contemporaries did, preferring a solitary existence away from the public eye. Robert Cabal passed away on May 11, 2004, at the age of 87. His death was not widely reported at the time, a quiet conclusion to the life of a pioneering actor whose contributions to television diversity were often overlooked during his lifetime. Sheb Wooley as Pete Nolan. Born on April 10, 1921, in Eric, Oklahoma, the multi-talented entertainer brought a gritty authenticity to the screen as the scout Pete Nolan on Rawhide. At the age of 37, Wooley's portrayal provided the steady, experienced backbone to the cattle drive, offering a mature and reliable counterpoint to the younger drovers like Clint Eastwood's Rowdy Yates. As the trail scout, he became a fan favorite, embodying the stoic competence of the American cowboy, and his presence helped ground the show during its most successful years, cementing his place in Western television history. While Pete Nolan was a serious, no-nonsense figure, Sheb Wooley was largely the opposite in real life, a jovial humorist and novelty musician responsible for the smash hit The Purple People Eater. This dichotomy created a professional tug-of-war. Wooley actually left Rawhide for a significant period to pursue his booming music career, and because he felt his role as the scout was diminishing in screen time. The industry often pigeonholed him into Western roles, frequently casting him as a heavy or villain in films like High Noon, prior to his hero turn, making it a constant effort for him to showcase his broader comedic and musical range beyond the saddle. Sheb Wooley remained active in the entertainment industry long after the cattle drive ended, appearing in films like The Outlaw Josie Wales and Hoosiers, and writing the theme song for the long-running variety show Hee Haw. He is also widely credited by sound designers as the voice behind the famous Wilhelm Scream, a stock sound effect used in countless blockbusters. Wooley passed away at the Skyline Medical Center in Nashville, Tennessee on September 16, 2003, at the age of 82 following a battle with leukemia. He was laid to rest in Hendersonville Memory Gardens, leaving behind a unique legacy that spanned top-charting comedy records and iconic dramatic westerns. Raymond St. Jacques as Simon Blake. Born on March 1, 1930 in Hartford, Connecticut, he made television history when he joined the cast of the long-running western Rawhide for its final season. At the age of 35, St. Jacques stepped into the boots of Simon Blake, a drover who became the first African-American regular character in a major primetime western series. His presence on the cattle drive was a groundbreaking cultural milestone during THFE height of the civil rights movement, offering a dignified and rugged portrayal that challenged the stereotypical roles often relegated to black actors of the era. While Simon Blake was a rough-hewn man of the frontier, Raymond St. Jacques was a man of high sophistication, intellect, and classical training. Possessing a commanding presence and a Yale background, his real-life persona was far more debonair than the dusty trailhand he portrayed. His tenure on the plains, however, was fraught with professional disappointment. Despite the historic nature of his casting, Rawhide was cancelled abruptly in the middle of his first season with the show. This left him with a shortened run that failed to fully capitalize on the character's potential, a frustration compounded by the broader systemic barriers he faced in Hollywood as a black leading man seeking substantial work outside of the emerging blaxploitation genre. Raymond St. Jacques remained a powerful force in entertainment, directing the film Book of Numbers and starring as Coffin Ed Johnson in the cult classic Cotton Comes to Harlem. He continued to work steadily through the 1980s, appearing in films like Glory and They Live, while also teaching fencing and acting to younger generations. He was a lifelong bachelor who adopted 2 sons, maintaining a private personal life away from the Hollywood spotlight. St. Jacques passed away in Los Angeles, California on August 27, 1990, at the age of 60, from lymphoma associated with AIDS. His passing marked the loss of a pioneering talent who opened doors for future generations of actors in the Western genre and beyond. Lee Van Cleef as Deck Summers. Born on January 9, 1925, the Somerville, New Jersey native had already begun to carve out a niche for himself in westerns before appearing in Rawhide. At the age of 34, Van Cleef's portrayal of the menacing and sharp-eyed character in the 1959 season utilized his predatory gaze and angular features to perfection. Although often relegated to the role of the antagonist or the heavy, his performance contributed to the gritty, realistic tone that distinguished the series from other westerns of the era. This role further cemented his reputation as one of Hollywood's most reliable and intimidating villains, a screen persona that would eventually make him an international icon. Despite his on-screen reputation as a cold-blooded killer or a treacherous outlaw, Lee Van Cleef was known in reality as a gentle, soft-spoken man who was fond of poetry and painting. The contrast between the bad guy he played and his actual personality was stark. He was a dedicated family man who often struggled with the limitations of his typecasting. His career during this period was fraught with significant hardship. In 1958, just before his Rawhide appearances, he suffered a severe car accident that shattered his knee and nearly ended his acting career. Doctors told him he would never ride a horse again, leading to a dry spell where he had to paint houses to support his family. A humbling struggle for an actor who had once shared the screen with Gary Cooper. Lee Van Cleef eventually overcame his injuries and career slump to achieve legendary status as a star of spaghetti westerns in the 1960s, most notably in For a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He continued to work steadily in action films and television until his health declined in the late 1980s. Van Cleef passed away in Oxnard, California on December 16, 1989, at the age of 64 after suffering a heart attack secondary to throat cancer. He was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills, where his grave marker bears the fitting epitaph, "Best of the Bad," a lasting tribute to the cinematic legacy he built from roles like those in his early years. Charles H. Gray as Clay Forrester. Born on November 27, 1921, in St. Louis, Missouri, the sturdy character actor had already built a resume of tough guy roles before joining the drovers on the Sedalia Trail. At the age of 40, Gray's portrayal of Clay Forrester brought a fresh, boisterous energy to Rawhide, stepping in to fill the void left by departing cast members in the show's later seasons. His performance as the reliable, albeit sometimes brash, trailhand became an integral part of the series' final years, helping to maintain the gritty camaraderie that defined the show's cultural legacy as one of television's definitive westerns. While Clay Forrester was a heroic and dependable figure on the cattle drive, Charles H. Gray's wider career was defined by a stark contrast. He was heavily typecast as a villain. His imposing physical presence and deep voice frequently landed him roles as heavies and antagonists in other westerns and crime dramas, making his tenure as a good guy on Rawhide a rare and cherished professional diversion. He faced the inherent instability of a character actor's life, particularly when Rawhide was abruptly canceled in 1965 amid network changes and slipping ratings. This cancellation forced him back into the competitive cycle of guest-starring roles, where he often had to fight against being pigeonholed solely as a menacing on-screen presence. Unlike the skyrocketing fame of his co-star Clint Eastwood, Gray maintained a lower profile, eventually retiring from the screen to live a quiet life in the California desert. Charles H. Gray passed away in Joshua Tree, California, on August 2, 2008, at the age of 86. His passing was attributed to natural causes, closing the chapter on a versatile career that bridged the gap between the golden age of TV westerns and the modern era of character acting. Watching the years pass for the Rawhide cast is a bittersweet reminder of our own journey through time. From the rugged plains of the 1950s to the present day, these actors carried the weight of a generation's dreams. Their legacy is etched in celluloid forever. If this trip down memory lane touched your soul, please give this video a like and subscribe to join our community of classic TV lovers.